Wake up, Neo. It's time to break the Matrix code. Here we are, taking a look at this scene in the Matrix, and it's going to play into what we're trying to decode in the heavens. So let's take a look at this scene here, and we're going to stop it before the end. We're just going to watch this beginning. Okay, so we stopped it here at 33 seconds into this scene, and we see Wake Up Neo. And this is from the movie The Matrix, as you all know. And in this scene is where Neo is introduced to the Matrix. And I want to go here next. And I want us to take a look at this. Matrix is a sci-fi virtual reality cyberspace term. Originally, matrix meant a womb, echoing the womb-like pods Neo and the others are kept in. The science fiction meaning, however, is more recent, found in Doctor Who's Deadly Assassin, 1976, as an equivalent of cyberspace. And then we go here to the Bible, and what we found is that this matrix in the Bible is also speaking about the womb. And I will go and link this study of the matrix. And what we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at stellarium. And what we want to do is focus on what this is really all about, because the movie The Matrix, as you all know, has some deep meaning, and it grasps on multiple levels of what we're all dealing with. And those of us who are watching for The Escape of the Bride, we're also looking for a birth. There are overlapping codes in the scriptures, and it's all associated with this, the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. And what we're looking at is a seed war. And these signs that we're getting are associated with this birthing, and there's going to be multiple birthing events, and so we want to be able to use the Mazzaroth to decode what these stars and planets, or wandering stars, the sun and the moon, the comets, the asteroids, are speaking to us. Because they are, whenever they are in a position like the womb of Virgo, then we can see this as a birthing event, depending on the trajectory and the placement that the body goes through. So, as most of you know, the planets and the sun and the moon, they come through this area of the ecliptic, which is the red line, and sometimes they're north or south of that line. The sun is always right on the red line. But these other bodies can come through at multiple different trajectories. As we saw with Comet Atlas, it came through from Sextans and headed over to Serpens, and in the process it cut through at an angle through the womb of Virgo. But it did not cross the Spica line, and so that changes the story compared to one that comes through what we call the birthing line, or the area connected to Spica. And if you look at the constellation of Virgo, we see the star Spica and the line that is coming across, and anything that passes that line is considered a birth. It can also be considered a harvest, because Virgo is holding a wheat sheaf in her left hand, which is connected to Spica, which is considered a harvest sign. In her other hand, she's also holding a corn in her right hand, which is another harvest. Some people say that it's a different sheaf that she's holding. It's not a corn sheaf, but it is a different sheaf. In ancient times, they had different kinds of grains. In our modern time, we have corn as one of the grains, and so there are people who believe that is actually a more ancient grain, something like amaranth or something like that. But that's besides the point. Basically, what we're seeing is Virgo as a virgin, and she is in control of the harvest, and we can see that one of the chambers in the Mazzaroth is her womb, as a lot of these planetary bodies, the sun and the moon, and as we can see here with 30p Rhinemuth, even the comets come through this section of Virgo. What we're looking at here is a story that's playing out in the heavens And one of the things that I saw when I was looking at uh, this storyline in the heavens is I saw that there were two things that were being marked in the heavens more than anything else right now. And one of them was the womb of Virgo, and then the other was the Hoopa of Ophiuchus. And hopefully you can see my cursor. If you can't see my cursor, then if you look at the body of Ophiuchus and you look at the stars connected to that, then it looks as though it's a tent. And in the ancient times, uh, the marriage ceremony was held in a Hoopa, which was essentially a covered. Uh, it was a tent-like structure that was covered on all the sides but the front, and it could take multiple shapes. It could be similar to this with a pointed top, or it could be a flat top. Uh, if you look up Hoopa in uh, Google or your web browser, you will see that there are many forms that this ancient wedding ceremony took place in. The Hoopa was very, very important to the wedding story. And if you look at the legs of Ophiuchus coming down into the ecliptic, then that is an extension of the Hoopa. And between the legs of Ophiuchus is considered a place of safety. It was also the room of the bride and the bridegroom for the wedding ceremony, as the sun and the moon and the planetary bodies do not transition through the body of Ophiuchus, and thus it traditionally is not considered one of the constellations of the zodiac. But many consider it the 13th sign of the zodiac because the right leg of Ophiuchus does transition down into the ecliptic. And the right leg of Ophiuchus is considered the exit of the Hoopa. And when the sun comes through this section of Ophiuchus and crosses the line, it is considered that the sun is coming out of one of the chambers of the Mazzaroth, and it is coming out of the Hoopa, as we saw here on the zodiac line. You can see the sun has come out of the chamber of Libra, which we look at as the altar. And if we're looking at this from a marriage perspective, then all of these things can change. And what I'm doing is I'm looking at the escape of the bride, and all of these signs, we're looking for the bride signs. So when we see the bridegroom, which is the sun, standing next to Libra as the altar, and we see Venus. We're here on the 18th, and this is the time that we have pulled up. We are going to show you this sign. We have Libra, which is the altar, and the sun has come out of the altar. And then we have Mercury, who is between the legs of Ophiuchus. And so we consider Mercury inside of the Hoopa. And again, Mercury is the messenger. So Mercury is messaging the marriage ceremony. And we also see here on the 18th that Venus is in the tabernacle. And the entrance and exit point of the tabernacle are these front and back lines. It looks as if you are looking at a three-masted ship, and it can also be the extension of the tent or the tabernacle. And so we have these extensions as the completed tent, and it can also be looked at as a boat or an ark. And the bow of Sagittarius is also a sign of that ark or bow. Okay, I had to grab something really quick for this process. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at Mercury, the messenger, and I found some very interesting things that are very deep. That's all I can say. This is all very, very, very deep. It has so many connections to all of the things that we've been looking for in these heavenly signs. This is really become extremely deep because of the other asteroids and comets that come into play with this. And when I was doing my work 10 years ago, I was not taking into consideration comets and asteroids. And I would not have the detail of the storyline without having integrated these asteroids and these comets into the story, because it's become so much more. It's truly grandiose on what we're being shown in the heavens. And most of us haven't spent our lifetime studying these things and looking into the heavens like the ancients did. In the ancient times, they didn't have TVs and computer screens and things like we have nowadays. And the heavens were what was their TV screen. And the stories that were passed down in the heavens uh, were what was being presented to the children and to the groups of all of the ancient peoples, and we've lost this in our culture. And uh, so what I want to do is bring this back and wake us up to what is being presented in the heavens. It's really important for us to grasp the depth of the storyline, because we're being shown something. It's shown. It's there for us. This is not by chance. None of these things are arranged in this way um, for no reason. This has a great purpose in all of our lives, and we can glean and learn so much if we would just take the time to look into the heavens. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at the path of Mercury. Mercury is doing something that is called marking. Whenever there's a retrograde motion of a planet, we tend to look at where the area is where the retrograde happens, and sometimes there is a story there. Well, if you actually look at the retrograde motion of Mercury, it looks as though Mercury is marking the Hoopa. So let's go ahead and run through the days and look at Mercury and the location of Mercury. Mercury is set to go retrograde on the 25th, so we're going to go ahead and move our way through up to the 25th, and you can see how on the 25th Mercury moves sideways. So you can see how Mercury was moving in a straight line. We're going to go ahead and look at it a little closer. And then on the 25th, you can see how Mercury was moving. And then on the 25th, it starts to move sideways. And that's when it goes into its retrograde. So we see how Mercury is doing its retrograde motion right before the leg of Ophiuchus. And as I said, this is the area of the Hoopa, between the legs of Ophiuchus. And so once I saw this retrograde motion of Mercury, who is the messenger, then I automatically went, there are some things happening inside of the constellation of Ophiuchus and Serpens right now that are screaming to us a very important story. It's very, very important. This is one of the most important things that we could ever look at and hear. This information is vital for us to grasp. It's really important. And so I hope that we can share this out. I normally don't ask people to share and like and do all those things. I try to keep this uh, as a minimalist, to where I'm just presenting my information and I let people do with it what they will. But this is really important. This video is going to be one of the deepest things I've ever presented. And a lot of these codes that I present, they're really focused on the bride and the marriage and the fish and a lot of the signs that are associated with our hunt. But when I was doing the codes for this one, it became very somber and very serious, and it almost made me weep because of what is about to transpire. So I want to make sure everybody knows that this is going to be a video that it's a tough one, and the codes are really they're really deep, and they need to be settled in our hearts, because there's things that are happening right now that are uncanny, and they match what we are seeing in our socioeconomics and the world scene. That's all I'll say. We know that there are a lot of people screaming World War III and other things, and so we all have that in our heads, and so let's let that play also into what we're about to talk about. So here we go. We can see how on the 25th Mercury does its retrograde motion, and if you have been following me for a while and you go to my community page, then you'll know that I also just posted about the sun being in the position of on the 25th. Essentially, the sun enters into the position of the menorah, and the sun becomes the servant lamp. And in the ancient times, Libra was also shown as a lamp. And if you look at the Scorpius constellation, it also has a look of a lamp. And these two constellations in ancient times were connected. And so when the sun is here in the point where it's transitioning into the Scorpius constellation. Excuse me, fam. Then this was looked at as the sun as the servant lamp. Then we have this happening at the exact same time that Mercury is going retrograde. And then we have Herculina, which is an asteroid, and we have Herculina that is here inside of the Hoopa. And essentially it's marking Mercury. So let's go back and we can see how Herculina is coming in the same direction as Mercury. Now let's go in closely, and I believe it's on the 28th, later in the day, when Herculina crosses the line at the end of the day. Herculina crosses the line of the Hoopa, which means Herculina is exiting the Hoopa. But remember, Mercury made its about face on the 25th, and it goes until December the 15th. It's a 21-day turnaround. And when I saw this retrograde of 21 days, it immediately made me think of Daniel 10. And if you read the story, it's essentially the messenger who's held up for 21 days, and that Michael, the archangel, comes to help. And if you are studied in Mazzaroth, then you know that Ophiuchus is a dual sign. It is a sign of Michael, who's wrestling the serpent. Remember, it's Michael who throws down, or the Michael and the angels. Michael's the warrior angel who ends up defeating the devil and his archangels, and they are cast out of heaven. And Mercury is making a 21-day journey, as if it is called back, and it's a 21-day journey. And Herculina marks the Hoopa on the 28th. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go look at the codes of asteroid Herculina. And this is where it gets deep, and we need to take this into consideration, because I believe that all of these codes are speaking to us here in America. These codes are for us, and they need to be heeded, because these kinds of things don't normally come up in the codes that I'm hunting for. This is serious. So please, if you have a pen and paper, please write these down and pray about these things because what we're seeing here in the heavens is it's serious time. It's go time. We're at the last stage. This is like the last warning. And so please hear these things. Do what you can to share these codes. These are the codes for asteroid Herculina. Cyber attack. Total collapse of America. Concentration camps. Day of reckoning. The storm is here. Southern border. Black plague is next. Causes desolation. Cashless society. Mark of beast hidden code. Break the matrix code. Okay. We know that here on 11/28 we see that asteroid Herculina is marking the exit of the Hoopa, and we know that if we look up in the left hand side, it goes into the details of Herculina, and we have the number 532. So I looked up 532 in Greek Strong's, and one of the things that came up was unprepared. And I wanted that to just sink in because I think most of us are unprepared for what's really coming to this land. And along with Herculina, we have asteroid Hebe, and asteroid Hebe is inside of on the 28th when Herculina is crossing the line. Hebe is inside of the Hoopa, and here we see on the 25th, the same day that Mercury goes retrograde, and the same day that the Sun is in the servant lamp position, asteroid Hebe aligns with Ophiuchus, which we consider Michael. It can also be Christ, but in this time we're looking at this as Michael. And I wanted to go look at the codes of asteroid Hebe, and it got even deeper than the codes of Herculina. So the first thing is I went to the English and simple with the gematria, and asteroid Hebe in English is 666, and in simple it's 111, and 111 can also be looked at as Vav Vav Vav, which is also 666. And so let's explore the codes for asteroid Hebe. The end is here. Vaccination. Mark of beast. Image of Satan. A COVID vaccine. Beast test. Monsanto. A satanic mark. Forehead sign. Witchcraft. I pet goat 2. And finally, wake up, Neo. Okay. So we see these two asteroids marking the Hoopa, and we also have comet Pan-STARRS, and we have comet 13P Olbers, and we have the asteroid Pallas. Let's see if we can pull that up. So we have asteroid Pallas that just marked the Hoopa on the 19th, the same day that I believe it is the 19th where Vesta was entering the womb of Virgo, and Metis, the wedding, was exiting the womb of Virgo. So we also know that Comet Atlas also came through Ophiuchus, and we know that Juno and Vesta also marked the womb of Virgo, and we've watched multiple comets go through the womb of Virgo, including Tsuchinshan Atlas that we can see here. And this womb of Virgo is being shown to us in this time also. And we have these codes here for a reason, because they're completing the storyline for us. So we have Vesta, and as most of you know, if you've been following me for a while, I've been following Vesta for a very long time. These codes for Vesta, they hit me a long time ago really hard, and so I've been watching Vesta for a very long time, and Vesta has always shown that it is involved in this storyline more than any other. This is the number one actor in the entire play when it comes to the escape of the bride. Now there's other bodies of planetary bodies that are more important when it comes to the mainline story. But when it comes to comets or asteroids, Vesta is number one in the storyline for the bride. So let's explore the codes for Vesta. Asteroid Vesta equals God's secret plan, secret window, secret energy key. Tribes of Israel. War in Israel. Helmet of salvation. God's trumpet. Day of atonement. Beginning of the end. Vortex. Jupiter's arc. Return to my kingdom. Prayers of the faithful. Your guardian angels. And Nazareth. So when I looked up Vesta by itself, it equaled Lazarus. And it also equaled the age of Aquarius. And so Vesta has always been very, very powerful to me. And if you read the story of the Vestal virgins, then this also equates to the virgins. And one of the things that I saw here with Vesta was 3D a comet Biela. And Biela being in the Virgo constellation at this time, marking Virgo, when Vesta is entering into the womb of Virgo, I decided to look at the codes for that, because these codes are playing a big part in completing the storyline, because we are looking at a story, and these codes are part of the story. So Comet Biela equals Harpazo. It equals Armageddon, Bride of God, the door, left behind, remnant, crucify, Philadelphia, fire of God, the flood, churches, final mark, the rabbit, dedication, matrix, get ready, storm, Anunnaki, the devil, blackout, the Pope, shroud, and Nazareth. So when I saw these together, it's a very serious story that's going down right now. There are very serious things that are happening as we speak in the heavens. These things are transitioning right now as we speak. Vesta is transitioning through the womb of Virgo. Now let's look at the womb of Virgo a little closer, and we can see here that we have Comet Rhinemuth inside of the womb of Virgo. So we're pulling up those codes next, and Comet Rhinemuth equals the storm is here, urgent message. The binding of Moloch demons. Prison break Messiah. Brood of vipers. Called up to heaven. 5th of November. Trumpeter. Key in the lock. The key to heaven. The crucifixion. Christ the tabernacle. Everlasting life. I break the matrix. December rapture. December 17. So, I started digging and I started looking at the path of these comets, and let's go ahead and transition and see what's happening with these comets. And if you look at this with me, you will see here on the 11th of December that Comet Rymuth and Comet Biela are both marking the exit of the womb of Virgo. And Vesta is right there in the womb, about to exit also. And when we look at all of this together, we're looking at a grand story. All of it is transitioning through the next couple weeks. This is all part of the story. We also have Juno and Dembowska that were also marking the womb of Virgo. And those come into play also in this storyline. But it's all too much. The codes just keep coming, and they all seem to align. There isn't any of these codes that aren't telling the exact same story. Whether that's from the wake up, there are things happening in our world that we need to wake up to. We need to stop worrying about the world, and we need to focus on the heavenly. We need to realize that these signs are happening for a reason. We are at the precipice. We are at the finish line. And we can see these comets marking essentially this finish line. We've seen all of these things come through this womb, and the story is getting very deep, and there's things happening in the heavens that aren't finished. The story is continuing. And if we go look over at the Hoopa, we can see that on the 15th, let's look at the 15th. And if we take a look here at the sun, and we can see that the sun has come out of the Hoopa on the 15th, and Mercury is coming out of retrograde, and Mercury is marking the Hoopa, which is the legs of Ophiuchus. And we can look at them closer. We can see that the leg of Ophiuchus, we can take it down from Zeta Ophiuchi. And some people say that you take it to the tip of the crab's claw, and some people say that you take it to the star Acrab. There are others who also say that you take it to these three stars that are lined up, and that's where you can see that the artwork in Stellarium chose to put the legs of Ophiuchus. And it depends on whether you're looking at a modern or an ancient interpretation, because a lot of these things were connected in the ancient times. These constellations were crossing into each other. This modern stellarium artwork does not do the full justice of what we need to see. Probably the best one is the Dendera, but there are multiple ways of us to get these ancient constellation signs in a better fashion than we see them here with Stellarium. But the main part of this video is that there are things happening in the Mazzaroth that are not finished. We have signs that are continuing all the way until the middle of December, and all of these are marriage and birth signs, and they need to be played out in order for us to see the storyline. And I do not believe that we have an escape that can happen until we have the rest of these things transition. And we see that the majority of these signs are completed by the time we get to mid-December, and we have that one code for Comet Rhinemuth, which is December Rapture, and December the 17th. And if you have seen Blow the Shofar's latest videos, then we may be looking at his timeline for the events that we're looking at. So I'm going to hopefully peg him in this video, and hopefully he will be able to see this, because a lot of these things line up with his timeline. So we're at an hour now. We're going to cut it here and come back for Escape of the Bride Part 8, and we're going to be talking about the chambers of the Mazzaroth. Thanks for coming.